me a favor and just check that it comes up on the YouTube as well from the school district, please. Good evening and welcome to the board meeting for the Webster Groves School District. Start off, has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? In favor, just check that it comes up on the YouTube.
Yeah, I'd like to, could I make a proposal, David?
Yes, please.
Yeah, could I propose that we move item 4.02, the child care grant contract with the YWCA off of the consent agenda into the meeting?
Yes. Okay, so we will do that. Well, do I have a second? Thank you, Christine. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, so that's that. So why don't we move that and let's make that item 3.06. Okay. Thank you. With that in mind, can I have a proposal to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so agenda is moved accordingly. Next, communications and recognitions. Item number 1, the board calendar.
There is nothing of particular note on there. There have been no changes, just continuing to move it along. I will be sending out something shortly regarding scheduling our retreat, and we're gonna look at a bunch of possibilities that include both the early summertime as well as prior to the start of the school year, just to see what works for people the best. So look for that coming out soon.
That's great. We have some ideas for the board agenda, but I'd sorry for that retreat. But I'd encourage if any board members have anything that they would like to see covered at that retreat, if you can let whoever the board president is know, along with Dr. Simpson, please. I just, as I say, and we'll, it's a chance if we have any items that we think sort of are good for something a little bit more in-depth time and discussion. It's a good chance to go and get those there. So please, as you would do with a normal agenda, please just make that wish known. Next, I draw everyone's attention to the public comment section of the board agenda. We have public comments in there. I know that board members have read them, and so just to make everybody aware of that, and certainly if anybody has comments they wish to record as public comments, please do so. And make a point. You don't need to wait for the agenda to come out in order to submit public comments. You can submit those at any time. Board members have read them. And someone's okay. That's great. Someone's obviously listening to it, and I could hear that coming back. And the sound of my voice is anyway. All right. Staff recognition ceremony.
Just wanted to share on there. That's just the flyer. Of course, we had moved the date that's on the board agenda, but just wanted you to see the flyer and the names of the different people at this point who'll be recognized. And Sandy and her team will add any new ones that come forward between now and then. So, lots to celebrate. And Kathy and Pat Weaver have been working with others on different ways to celebrate and videos related to the honorees. Sandy, did you want to say anything else? Okay. That's it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Item 3, reports from superintendent and staff. Update on second semester and student programming. Dr. Simpson.
Yeah, my report tonight is it will be pretty short. I'll be open to entertaining any classes, any questions. First of all, the high school came back to their revised schedule last week, and things have gone well. The building naturally feels a little bit more full with 1,000 kids in there, as opposed to half of that 1,000. It wasn't divided purely down the middle. But it's gone well on all fronts. You know, it definitely takes getting used to for for some, more than others. But I think the staff has done a really good job welcoming the kids back. And again, the data both at that school as well as our other schools continues to look favorable. We're excited to have our second day of vaccinations, the Pfizer vaccine, for all of our staff who wanted that. That'll go on again tomorrow. We know the disruption that it causes to a number of different families when we have an asynchronous day. We know the burden that it places on mainly folks having to deal with childcare and supervision and such, but we do feel like it's necessary, and we prioritize getting the vaccine to our staff as quickly as we possibly could. So once again, shout out to Rachel Huertas, John Thomas, a lot of people on this call, and a lot of volunteers from around the district who came to make that event happen last time. So, and to some of you as well, we really appreciate that. So a number of special events. The year is typically filled with, the end of the year is filled with special events across the district. Other than graduation, really none of those happened last year. We're trying to allow as many of those to happen as we can within still all of the different safety protocols that we have in place. So again, we're very mindful of things like masking and distancing and sanitizing and all those things. But if we can provide some experience for some people, we're trying to do that. I am excited about the work of largely the high school, in particular, Minnie Prince, the assistant athletic director, to give the high school seniors some type of prom experience that will be very different. It won't be the same, but it's going to be at Busch Stadium. It's going to be on the upper tier. There's spacing. Again, like I shared with the board, there's X's where they have to stand where they drink water. There's all kinds of things to keep them safe, but at least it's something. And we had, at the last time of reporting, I think it was around 100 kids at that point who had signed up. So excited to be able to do something. We did, again, just for those extra precautions, similar to a few weeks ago, Webster was one of the few schools at the state championship in the girls basketball game that wore masks. And, it's one of those things where I take a little bit of heat for that, but we've been pretty consistent all the way through. And if we're going to say masks are important here, then they're going to be important there too. And we've been sticking by the St. Louis County guidelines. So since, even though the prom was going to be in the city of St. Louis, we still reached out to the county and had them approve all of our plans for that particular experience, again, with the kids' masks and all of that. One of those special end of the year experiences is Seeger 6th grade center. The students are going to get to have like a version of 6th grade camp on the campus of Seeger, which is, of course, this beautiful campus. So the staff, again, it won't be the same, but the staff of Camp Wyman will be there, and kids will get an opportunity to climb trees and shoot arrows and do all kinds of neat stuff all over the campus. So again, a little bit neat, but we're excited to do that. You'll be hearing more and more, and I think I've already if I haven't put it on your calendar, I will, but during that last week of Seeger, there'll be a number of different celebrations regarding the school, and the staff and team of Seeger has put a lot of thought into how the children contribute to the celebration and the closing and the moving on of the school. So more and more information will be coming your way on that. We have been, last thing I'll say is that, we've been preparing and just continuing to ramp up thoughts and planning for next year. That's been on the mind of us for a while. And we're continuing to work towards what does 21-22 look like for our children. We definitely anticipate that we'll have, school kids in for the entire school day, that based on where we are right now, that we'll be able to make that work. Students will continue, like they even had pre-pandemic, to participate in some type of virtual program. But again, we'll see how things look. I know people are wondering about, what about masks and all these things? And we still anticipate that masks are still going to be worn in the fall, based on what a number of the infectious disease people who we continue to speak with are saying. It's great that these vaccines are happening and all these things, but they're anticipating still recommending us starting the year wearing masks. It's just an example. So it's a lot of work. We'll continue to plan and support people on the way. That's all I have for my update tonight.
So John, just one question. Does the 3 feet versus 6, is that going to make any changes to anything?
You know, that's a great question, David, because the CDC has come out recently and they've explained that the I don't know what the best word is, the hypersanitation, a lot of the things that we have been doing we're still continuing with clean spaces and the such, but that's not as important as we thought. It continues to be, I was on a Zoom with Jason Newland and some of the people recently, and they talked about like just regular cleaning and sanitizing is probably something that you could do, but then if there are cases that appear, doing the heavy sanitation in the rooms, but the fogging of the rooms and all of that probably isn't as much. With the 3 to 6 feet, again, we've been blessed by people who have said from the start, you remember, I mean, we've come out of the gate and said 3 to 6 feet with masks, we can do that. And there's spaces especially that we've only been able to get that. So it's really just what the CDC is saying now is affirmed with some of these experts locally have told us, and nationally some of them, from the start. It doesn't change the lunchtime because it's all about being masked still. So we'll see, but nothing new in terms of our processes. Again, as I think a lot of us have heard, it's more transferred through the airborne. So having the barriers and things like that were not required, but do this as an additional layer, aren't seen as, being as important. But I did hear a recommendation that if you are, like a suggestion could be, if you're doing lunch and you can't get 6 feet, that using those barriers, it might be best to take the barriers that are maybe in some of the classrooms, transfer them to the lunchroom setting. So
okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Anybody else got any questions for Dr. Simpson? Keita?
I have a quick question, John. Has the CDC or St. Louis County or anyone started talking about vaccinations for kids with the school districts yet?
Yes. It was on that same webinar yes, we are able to, with April 9th passing, the vaccines are eligible. I think it's simply the Pfizer one. I do believe that got approved under the emergency guidance or guidelines that would allow a 16-year-old and above to get the Pfizer vaccine. And I do believe that the Moderna and the Johnson, I don't know if it's both of them or just the Moderna, that for 18-year-olds and above, they do feel like by the start of school year that there could be vaccines that are accessible to kids as young as 12. And they are also in the process and I think beginning to test boosters. Like they said, it's still unknown how long the vaccine that we have is going to last. And they don't know if a booster is going to be necessary, but those are already in development from the Pfizers and some of those groups and will be prepared when the need arises.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
Keith, I just want to add that I'd like to, and to all the board members, definitely start to explore how we can support our students in getting vaccinated. It might not be till right after school is out. We just have to see how that looks. But anything we can do to help our staff and a way to help our community. I don't know if that would be necessary at this point, but with it becoming more accessible here on Friday to everybody, but we'll see.
I know isn't there a J&J event down at max vaccination down at the Dome? And I thought I'd read about that and that it hadn't been oversubscribed, but I don't know what the age limit on that is.
I think it's Pfizer.
Oh, it's Pfizer, is it? Okay.
I'm pretty sure because they were saying for people that drove to get their first vaccine, if they haven't gotten their second one, they could get their second one at the Dome. So I think initially it's Pfizer, and then they're going to switch to J&J at some point.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's
Thank you.
I believe, yeah.
Not
But that's
not really. Yeah, not really board business per se, but yes, obviously good. Yeah, anything we can do to support that would be great. Okay. All right. No other questions there. Then admin salary structure. Pam, Sandy.
Good evening. So in
Good
your
evening.
packet, that's the same admin salary schedule model that we presented at the March, I think it was March 11th meeting. That's the same model the district's been using. It was developed, I believe, in 2017. The goal is to get the administrator salaries to 3% over the median. And then that median is based off of all of the St. Louis County school districts. So our recommendation is to approve the same model for next year.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Keita, do you have a question? Oh, okay. You're just adjusting your glasses. Sorry. Okay. That's great then. Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I think the model works works very well. I think it's supported by our administrators, by our teachers. It's understood by our taxpayers. So I think it's very good that we're able to use that. So thank you very much.
David, I just wanted to add real quick before we move on that
yes.
That our ultimate goal is to have all of our staff paid at the same comparative level, which would, as the teachers, which currently is at 105. Every staffing group other than the teachers is at 103, which was a big improvement. But I just didn't want to, it's totally supported, it's understood, all those things, but I just want to make sure that the board keeps hearing that we'd like everybody to be at that same level. So
Right.
say that.
Yep. And so yeah, I mean it's certainly that's a definitely a goal. I also appreciate that everybody is mindful of, as we're looking at this, one of the questions that always comes up is just where do district finances stand, and that everybody's mindful that whilst we've got this goal, at the same time, we are also going to be mindful just of where our finances stand and what the district can afford to do as well. So we're doing this in a sort of sensible and thought out manner. So thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. Okay, the construction update.
Well, don't we have to motion that?
So is it part of the consent agenda, or do we need to do that here?
It
Have to do it
looks
here, please.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Thank you, Alex. So do you want to make a motion, Alex?
Sure, I'll motion to approve the administrator salary structure model for 21-22 as presented.
Great,
Second.
thank you. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? That carries unanimously. Okay,
Who was
thank
the
you very
second on that?
much. Alan was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Proposition E, construction update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
Rob Stuber, the district's project manager, is going to go through some of the projects that will be beginning this summer, and then also review the projects that were finished up from last summer. In just a moment. Okay.
All right, so actually what we'll do is we'll start with the completed projects first and then roll through the Hixson project and then go to the projects that are going to be going on this coming summer. As of today, the Avery, Bristol, Edgar, and Ambrose Family Center secured vestibule projects are 100% complete. We passed all of our county, city, and fire marshal inspections. We are currently waiting for O&M manuals, certifications, and then owner training. And owner training is a very important item that we're trying to schedule right now. We probably would have completed all that, but spring break and then map testing popped up on us. So we're trying not to put too much burden to try to get the groups at each one of these facilities together while they're so busy. But that should be taken care of here shortly within the next week or so. So our first 4 out of the design package number 2 are complete. Okay, so actually the next 4 buildings will be Hudson, Clark, Steger, and the high school. The Hudson project is probably going to be one of the most evasive projects of those 4 because we're actually doing a classroom renovation into a front office. Then we're going to do some pretty heavy demolition and remodeling of their front foyer-way. Each one of these buildings, the portion of work that is going to be done will be to create these secured double door vestibules that were part of the bond issue description. Each one of them will receive ADA upgrades, card swipes, and also things like cameras. There's buzzers inside the receptionist area behind this secured window. All of these projects will be similar to the first 4 that we just completed. So Hudson, Clark, the high school, and Steger will all start right after the last day of school or the last weekend of school and continue all the way through and will be done before the next school year starts.
So just a request, as this stuff gets done, if you can bring us back pictures at the next board meeting once there's something to actually show us. I think I certainly would appreciate sort of seeing what is going on. I don't want you to go to a huge amount of trouble or anything, but once it gets done, I think it's nice for the board just to sort of go and see, and then for those who are watching, just to go and see how the taxpayers' dollars are being spent and the good work you're doing.
A quick story. I actually had pictures. Tuesday night, I accidentally dumped my whole block of pictures that included those other 4 buildings, some of the interior shots and so on and so forth. So I panicked on Wednesday and ran out and was able to put this block of pictures together for this presentation. So David, I promise you, you will have pictures.
Oh, okay. All right. I thank you very much.
Yep, you bet. So if we can go back to the high school, there's one little nuance about the high school. The main entrance is going to be the focal point of this project. It will get a secondary set of doors to the inside of that foyer area. But we will also be addressing an issue down in the north addition entryway, which is currently the ADA accessibility entrance. The interior set of doors currently is not a secured set of doors, but this project will upgrade those sets of doors. So both the main entrance and the north addition ADA accessibility entrance will be secured like all the other entrances. Just as a side note. Steger Gibbons. There's a lot going on at Steger Gibbons this year. We not only do we have the bond issue work, which includes an ADA access ramp that will go from the current, we'll say the bus drop-off location all the way up to the main entrance. We're going to make that main entrance accessible via an ADA ramp, a concrete ramp that is going to be poured or cast in place. We're going to remove the current stairs that are there and have to reconfigure everything for that ADA ramp, and also to create enough area to be able to access the new main doors going into the new secured vestibule. That secure vestibule will be upgraded with the safety pass-through window also for the receptionist. She'll have the controls over the 2 sets of doors like all the other secured vestibules. There's other bond issue money that we earmarked for Steger. through the help of Melissa, we were able to put a list together, and I went out for costing, and we put a little hit list together here that describes that additional work that's going to be done. We're going to upgrade the 2 restrooms that are near the gymnasium. One of her big requests was additional tack board surfaces throughout all the hallways. I think we have 8 or 9 different locations, plus those big tack surfaces in by the cafeteria. Those are going to be replaced, upgraded to newer material, and going to match the new color and logo that I think she just got completed this past week or 2. There's going to be the removal of a lower level brick monument sign. I don't know if everybody's too familiar with that. It's actually at the lower level sidewalk that goes into the lower level computer school, but that brick monument is kind of considered an unsafe a possible hiding place for any type of intruder. So that was one issue that she wanted to see if we could take down, which that will be removed. And then the front marquee sign out on Rock Hill Road, I was able to locate the company out of Florida that provided that facility with that sign. And along with Melissa's help, we're going to introduce her new school logo and colors into the replacement lenses that we've been discussing with the sign company. Basically, what we're trying to do is give Steger a little bit of a facelift. It's going to become an elementary school, and all these little touches here and there, I think it'll be noticeable. And then there's also a small little revision going on in the library. They've already acquired some lower library shelving that will go against the walls and a couple other places to replace the very tall wall-mounted library shelves. And then we're also going to take on that front exterior elevation. I don't know if everybody's familiar and noticed, but it's a very odd type of construction because it's a cast in place. It's called a concrete eyebrow. It's the overhang that kind of wraps around the whole school. That is really deteriorating quite badly. And we've already gone through the motions with architects and some subcontractors about how do we address that, because it's cracked, it's leaking, the paint is failing, it's chipping. So that is actually also going to be taken care of over this summer as part of all this work that's going on at Steger Gibbons. So that's going to be a busy place. It's going to be a very busy place. So I guess any questions on the first design package number 2, any of the elementary schools? No?
Don't see any.
Okay. Hixson Middle School. Hopefully everybody has at least driven by once, twice. I don't know how often you're able to get by there. The 2-story academic wing is really rolling right along. The whole exterior brick package is done. I think those of you who've gone by noticed that all the windows are actually being installed. That is an indication that all of the interior finishes are actually happening also. Typically interior finishes follow the installation of the windows to, obviously to protect from weather and so on and so forth. All of the above ceiling mechanical and electrical rough-ins have been completed. Ceiling grids will go in. You'll see a lot of this stuff once we get to the pictures. We are far enough along in the 2-story wing addition that we're actually making preparations for the installation of the cabinet and casework, and mostly in the science classrooms. That just tells you how far along we are on that 2-story academic wing. So go to the next slide, Pam, please. The administration library area is, that's a very busy area right now. We have spray on vapor barrier happening. We have brick going up. There's a lot of brick on the outside, but there's also interior brick in that new vestibule area. metal stud framing in the walls. There's a lot of big architectural metal stud framing for the overhead soffits in the ceiling of the library. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have the majority of the masonry completed. That way the windows can follow also. The majority of the mechanical electrical rough-ins have been completed. If we move on to the cafeteria brickwork is done. I would say by the end of next week, all the windows will be in. A lot of the renovation to the cafeteria, we're trying to do as much as we can now, but until the end of the school year. And then once the end of the school year, we open up that existing cafeteria wall. And then we actually do a lot of renovation to the existing cafeteria also. But we obviously got to wait until that at the end of the school year. The music classroom addition is, it's receiving its application of spray vapor barrier. Once they complete the library wing brick, the masons will move over to the music classroom wing.
Rob, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely, ma'am.
What is the vapor barrier?
It protects from any moisture or water migration that might get through the brick.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It protects all your interior drywall, the backside of your interior drywall in the insulated cavity. Protects from any type of wind seepage through the masonry or any cracks or whatever. Just it seals up the envelope and protects it from the outside.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so here's a good view of the cafeteria. It's they were able to do this whole masonry package in 1 week. That was over spring break. So we were really pleased that we were able to get them in and get them out, because it's kind of tough working in that location with a lift and scaffold and all that stuff when there's so much traffic going in and out of there. So that's a good example of a planning by ICS and execution by ICS and their subcontractors. So we were really pleased with the way that turned out. Here's some of your spray on vapor barrier, Akita. You can see that on the bottom there's the brick. You can barely notice on the right side that there's also some foam insulation that goes in between the brick and the sprayed on vapor barrier for insulation factor. But that is the actual west side stairwell of the library admin wing. So that view shows the south side, which you can see to the right is the existing 2-story academic wing. To the left, it's somewhat dark, but that is actually the new front entryway canopy. And then the masonry is going up on that side too. So this is a really great picture of all the interior metal stud framing that's taking place in that foyer area. This area is right in the area once you get in through the foyer and before you get into the library. This is actually the hallway that, as you look straight through there, will connect into the existing building. And this is your library. I love this. I love standing in this space. It's amazing to watch these craftsmen do what they do and working with such tight dimensions, and it's just really incredible. They make it look so easy. But this is a view from, let's see, east looking west. You can also see how big these windows are going to be in this library. That's a good example of the expansive window areas that we're going to have installed. And here is the south side of your 2-story academic wing. Like I said, once the windows go in, it's a real good sign. This is a good view of one of the science classrooms. You can see that there's paint going on the wall. There's ceiling grids going up. There's supply grills that are being connected to the new ductwork. There's lights being put in place. So again, we're really, really underway with a lot of the interior finishes. It's the most of the first story or the first floor looks like this. 2-story is a little bit behind, but it'll look like this in a week or so. New roof area. It's what can I say? It's a lot of roof area, and it's white TPO membrane. All roof areas right now, 2-story academic wing, library wing, cafeteria, and music classroom wing are under roof. So that's also a good thing to help protect us from the elements. So this is a 2-story hallway. You can see that they're winding down with the final taping and sanding of the drywall. I do believe that painting is going to be starting next week. Once the paint goes in, then you'll start seeing things like the ceiling grid go up also. This is one of your bathrooms on its first floor, and I believe this is the men's bathroom. This is all ceramic tile. I wish you could see it in person. It's a little dark. Really love how all the color combinations are coming together. The architect really did a good job, along with help with Shanita's keen eye. They spent 2 or 3 times going through the whole color selection process, and I think the kids are going to really enjoy the way that this academic wing feels. It's going to be pretty impressive. This is let's see, west end of 2-story. This is the first floor hallway paint. You can see accent colors, primary colors on the wall, and then secondary accent colors on the columns. You can see that the ceiling grids are in, duct work, pipe work, everything above the ceiling grid. Here is the music classroom wing. You can see that the vapor barrier and the roofing is installed. They did start with the masonry on the south side of the music classroom. Again, once they finish the library wing, they might even split the crew and start in on the music classroom wing. This shouldn't take but a week or so to finish all the masonry. It'll move pretty quickly. All righty. Any questions with regards to Hixson?
Not a question, but I just really wanted to commend you on all of this. I think it was just a little over a year ago, Rob, that we walked through Hixson, the building committee, and it floors me to see all of this finally taking shape, and it's looking good. Thank you.
Yeah, I call it a beautiful mess. It's amazing. Once you stick the shovel in the ground, what you see, the assemblies that go together, the sequencing of all the installations and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, I do need to take just a quick second or two to really brag about ICS and the superintendent they do have on site. He is a superintendent, and it's his way or the highway. So myself being, in the position I am, I appreciate how he handles his job site. Absolutely. But thank you.
I gotta say, Rob, I have a 7th grader who's looking very, very forward to being there next year.
Oh, 8th grader next year.
Yeah, she's
Nice.
she's like, she can't, every time she gets in the car, she's like, see, they got windows. You see, they're doing this. So
you
really
get
excited about that.
So you get updates.
Pictures.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, design package 2A, the window and door. We finalized all of our building inventories. We actually had to go to each building and literally look at each window assembly, count windows, assess the windows as to what they're going to be receiving, whether it's just tint or tint and impact resistant film and so on and so forth. I'm meeting with the architects on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, to finalize the package, which should be coming to the board probably in about a month for approval. I shouldn't say approval. We have to still put it out to bid and so on and so forth. So there's still another package to be submitted for recommendation. And it'll be to address exterior and interior windows. Some of the door openings are actually being taken care of through this first design package. Main entrances, secondary entrances, obviously getting the upgrades. I know that Jason and the crew, they've addressed a couple more openings here and there through the school district on an as-need basis. So I'm excited to get through all these packages, and there's got to be a point in time where maybe we can take the board on tour. That's okay.
We'd certainly look forward to that. It's been interesting to look at it from a distance. And thank you for those pictures, by the way.
You bet.
No, it's great just to sort of see what's going on and to understand all these things. And so thank you. Anything else? Any other questions?
Actually, I
Go
do have-
ahead.
Is there any money budgeted to fix the parking lot in the back?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And that was a question that was asked even before and part of the design phase for Hixson's project. We knew that the budget could only go so far with addressing, that whole Elm Avenue parking lot side. That's getting completely reconfigured and redone. It'll wrap all the way around that radius drive that faces 44 and a portion of that front administrative parking area. I know that, and Jason, I don't want to speak for you, but I do believe that we are starting to eyeball parts of that Hixson parking lot, the North Drive, the actual football parking lot, and so on and so forth. So it's been an item that we've been trying to plan for quite a long time, actually, Keita.
Gosh, that would be so awesome if you can. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And as everybody else has said, thank you for all of your hard work and also for the hard work of the teams that you have had working on that. It looks to me like it's making really great progress. So appreciate the update.
Thank you, board member.
Okay. Social studies curriculum. Jason, are you going to lead this off? And you can perhaps, if you can just introduce everybody who's going to be presenting as well, please.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening to all of you. Let me get my presentation set up real quick. So I am pleased to be joined this evening by several other folks who will be sharing an update regarding our K-8 social studies curriculum revisions. I'm joined this evening by Claire Daimler, who is our K-5 social studies coordinator, by Dr. Sherry Rochelle, who is our 6th through 8th grade social studies coordinator, and also Dr. Sean Williamson, who is our director of equity, inclusion, and diversity. And our goal this evening is to share an update regarding our K-8 social studies curriculum revisions, and we'll be asking for your consideration at a future board meeting based on the information that we share with you this evening.
Okay, so to be clear, so you're not asking for that there's not a proposal coming out tonight, though?
Correct.
Okay,
we'll
that's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. So going into this process, the goals of all of those who were involved in developing this revised curriculum, we had 3 main goals that we were focused on. The first being to emphasize inquiry skills and critical thinking as outlined by the tools of social science inquiry. So in terms of what are best instructional practices in terms of social studies, to design an inclusive and relevant social studies curriculum with an emphasis on equity and social justice, and then to create a scope and sequence that also meets the 2016 Missouri Learning Standards. In addition, we believe that what we are sharing with you this evening fits and matches our equity resolution, which was passed in 2017, and also our newest policy in terms of our anti-bias, anti-racism policy, which was passed earlier this year. far as who was involved, this has been an ongoing process. It was started before my time in the district. Dr. Dimbo, along with our 2 social studies coordinators, initiated this process. And then I've been able to be a part of all of the work that's happened this year and moving the work forward. In addition, we have social studies facilitators that are in grades K through 5. And these are classroom teachers from across the district who have been in a leadership role as far as drafting this curriculum and providing feedback and going through the whole process. And all of the 6th through 8th grade social studies teachers have also been involved in drafting and developing their curriculum. In addition, we have used feedback from community members. We've also partnered with Dr. LeGarrette King from Mizzou. And then Dr. Williamson has also been involved in the process as we've moved forward this year. As I mentioned earlier, this process started in 2018. At that point, the learning team identified K through 5th grade grade level facilitators, and the 6th through 8th grade social studies teachers were invited to collaborate with the coordinators. At that point, first drafts were shared with the facilitators and teachers for feedback. A proposed scope and sequence was shared with the Curriculum Coordinating Council at that time. Then in the spring of 2019, facilitators and teachers revised the orders of the units, and we'll be walking through the scope and sequence in just a moment, and the grouping of the standards. At that point, this summer, until this point now, we have continued the ongoing revision of the proposed curriculum draft. The facilitators and the teachers have worked to craft the units and lessons as well. We have participated in consultation with Dr. King, again from Mizzou. And what that has looked like, he reviewed all of the curriculum documents. He met with the teams of classroom facilitators and shared feedback, and that feedback and professional development was then used to continue the process of drafting the curriculum documents. Again, just to remind the board and the community, Dr. King is what we would call an expert in terms of Black history, and we wanted to make sure that we made sure that multiple perspectives were included as part of our curriculum work in terms of aligning with our goal of being as inclusive as possible in the work that we were proposing to bring forward to you. In December of this year, or of last year, we then shared the update to the Curriculum Coordinating Council once again. At that point, we shared a feedback with the community that was sent out through our district communication. It was open for 4 weeks. It was open during a period of time at the end of December through the beginning of January. The thinking at that time was that families and teachers, because we were serving both community and teachers, would have some additional time perhaps that they could spend some time reviewing the curriculum. So we did it over that winter break period. When it closed at the beginning of January, we had 36, 37 responses at that point. Several of the responses indicated that they wished that it hadn't been shared over winter break. And so we then opened it up again and shared it once again with the community to invite additional feedback. At the time that closed, after again 2 or 3 weeks of it being open, we received at that point around 60 responses. And many of the common themes that were shared in the responses within the survey we'll be addressing in just a little while.
Sorry to interrupt for a second. So was that 60
Sure.
additional responses or 60 in total?
60 in total.
Thank you very much. Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So then at that point, the feedback from Dr. King and then the feedback from the survey results were then shared with the facilitator groups from K all the way through 8th grade, and final revisions were made, and we are pleased to share with you this evening the result of those final revisions. In terms of what went into developing the social studies curriculum, we, as mentioned earlier, the curriculum was developed around the Missouri grade grade level expectations. So those are the 2016 Missouri Learning Standards. But then as a part of that, we also use the Learning for Justice, Social Justice Standards to make sure that we were integrating inclusion, conversations around anti-bias, anti-racism into the work that we were doing so that we could make sure that all perspectives, as we are thinking about history, as we are thinking about community, as we are thinking about all of the different topics that are encompassed within social studies, are shared. And so we very much combined those two pieces, with the Missouri Learning Standards being the driving force and supplementing that with the Learning for Justice, Social Justice Standards. At this point, Claire and Sherry will talk a little bit about the scope and sequence, and then they will walk through some examples of how the Missouri Learning Standards and the Social Justice Standards interact with each other in terms of what that would look like in a classroom experience.
Thanks, Dr. Adams. So we wanted to just kind of show you in general how the scope and sequence is changing. So at the top, you'll see where we are today with our scope and sequence, and what we're proposing is below. And so we were really trying to streamline how our students experience social studies through grades K through 8. So some of it is still the same in terms of the overall topics. So again, as a kindergartner, we're starting with, exploration of ourself, family, and school, which leads into first and second grade with school and community. Second grade gets bigger, where they start learning about regions, both within our local community, our country, and the world. The differences that you'll see are in grades 3, 4, 5, and at the elementary level. So third grade, Missouri moved the study of Missouri to third grade from fourth grade. So they'll study Missouri in third grade. And then at the beginning of grade 4 is when we start with a study of the United States. So in fourth grade, we start from really how our fourth grade team has structured it. They're actually studying different civilizations around the world, and then how people from those civilizations came to be in what is now the United States. And they'll study that through 1800. Grade 5 picks up, and they are going to they'll start with, you'll see the dates kind of, grade 4 is through 1800. Grade 5 starts at 1783 because they're going to do an in-depth study into the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And then that will take them through the Civil War. Grades 6 and 7, those, and Sherry, jump in if you like, but those are thematic units that take us through United States history to the present. And then in grade 8, they will begin a study of world civilizations, as well as like global issues that impact us even today. So next, I kind of wanted to show you, when you look at the curriculum document, we want to kind of point out a couple of different pieces to it. So on the curriculum document for K-5, you'll see a learning goal. So for example, in kindergarten, students will be able to understand history, continuity, and change. And that's actually a learning goal you'll see throughout the grade levels. For kindergartners, then, what that looks like, you'll see the Missouri Learning Standards that go along with that learning goal, and you'll also see the social justice standards that align with that learning goal. So again, for example, in kindergarten, one of the learning standards for Missouri is describe the contributions of people typically studied in K-5 programs associated with national holidays. In the social justice standards, you'll see, will you bump back up for me for a second?
Oh, sorry, Claire.
That's okay. You'll see students will identify figures, groups, events, and a variety of strategies and philosophies relevant to the history of social justice. You'll also see that they will examine diversity in different contexts. So what that looks like then, now I'm ready, Jason. So we took the standards from Missouri and the social justice standards, and then we really went through like, what does that look like? Like what does that mean for our kids? How will our students be engaged in this learning? And so again, at the elementary level, it looks a little different than what Sherry will show you at the middle school level. But then within each of our units in kindergarten, what does this study of history look like? What are we doing with our kids? So for example, in our unit rules and rights, within that discussion and within talking about rules and rights, they are going to examine the lives and contributions of people who've worked to bring justice and fairness to the world. So you can see we give some examples. It's not an all-inclusive list, but it does suggest to our teachers and to our team, who are we talking about when we say that? So you can see Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosa Parks, Malala Yousafzai. These are all people that kids might study and probably most likely using children's literature. So that's an example of how we've taken the history standards from Missouri and kind of brought that social justice lens to it. You can also see this even at cultures and traditions. Yes, we are studying people who are associated with national holidays. We're also going to explore the history and traditions of holidays in the United States and around the world. So we've expanded it to be more inclusive. And I think Sherry is going to talk through the middle school.
Yes, thank you, Claire. So of course, the middle school level is going to be a little bit more content rich, as well as it's digging deeper into the content. So when we're looking at this is giving you a view of the Missouri Learning Standards and the social justice standards for a 6th grade unit titled Politics and Citizenship in the Reconstruction Era. So I'm not going to read through all of them, but I want to point out the first 2 standards underneath the Missouri Learning Standards analyze the causes and consequence of a specific problem in American history, as well as the challenges and opportunities faced by those trying to address the problem. And then the next one, using an American history lens, examine the origins and impact of social structures and stratifications on societies and relationships between peoples. And then if we look down to our social justice standards, where I'm going to point out diversity 10, I can explain how the way groups of people are treated today and the way they have been treated in the past and how that shaped their group identity and culture. And then justice 12, I can recognize and describe unfairness and injustice in many forms, including attitudes, speech, behaviors, practices, and laws. And understanding that this is within the Reconstruction era, that really fits into those 2 standards from above, and it makes complete sense to have the Learning for Justice standards that are completely what we've already done, but now we're just emphasizing that this is a way that we're bringing equity and awareness and having everyone represented in all of our groups. So I want you to keep those 4 things in mind as we move to the next slide. So on this slide, I'm just going to talk about some specific targets that are related to those things I pointed out on the previous slide. So these are our targets and essential questions. And if you look at the 4th target, students can critique the effects Reconstruction had on different groups in America, including Black Americans, women, and Southerners. And you'll notice how that's connected to the previous slide and how we're talking about every group within the society and those laws and practices that were then put in place and how it impacts them. And then the next one I want to talk about is the 5th one. So it's right underneath that, the 5th bullet point. Students can analyze the amendments and plans for Reconstruction proposed by the US government to determine whether they were good for all Americans. So again, that ties into the Missouri Learning Standard that's talk about solving a problem and how that's going to impact everyone that lives in America. And then I want to point out the very final thing, the essential question on that slide. How did Reconstruction define citizenship for all Americans? And again, that's all encompassing and that's a focus question. And we'll talk about inquiry social studies later on, but you'll see how this connects to all of the components that I described.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Sherry. Are there any questions at this point before we move forward? Okay, we will keep
Actually, I'm
moving.
sorry, Jason,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Keita.
Real quick question. I know that there are some who wanted to have like local history and stuff studied. And I know that like I've talked to some people at the Historical Society and such. Is that going to be more on the elementary level? Is that something that is still kind of maybe being worked into, or?
That's a great question, Keita. If you look at the final bullet point on this slide that we're on right now, students will explore local Missouri, St. Louis, and Webster, North Webster experiences of diverse groups, including women, Black Americans, and others during Reconstruction.
Oh, that is awesome. Okay, thank you so very much.
Also, I want to add to that, my third grade team, in their history of Missouri, or within their study of Missouri history, are coming at this through the lens of what's happening in St. Louis, what's happening in Webster, what's happening in here at that time as well. So that will be reflected in third grade as well.
That's awesome too. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know in the past, people have been concerned about the fact that when we said like through the present, it was really through like, I don't remember, 1950, maybe something like that. How far does it actually go now with the new curriculum?
We go all the way to the present. So do you want to go back to the scope and sequence, Jason, just quickly? So if you'll look, sixth grade starts 1865 to 1946, and then seventh grade is 1946 to the present. So, and they really do, they encompass the 2000s. They have set up their themes for each, for different decades.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before we move forward? Okay. So I mentioned earlier the community survey. Mentioned that we did 2 rounds of surveys, total around 60 responses. Many of the responses questioned the use of the social justice standards, questioned conversations around inclusion and issues related to diversity and hard history. And so what we did is we pulled some of the common themes from the survey, and we'll be addressing them in the next few slides. And Dr. Williamson will be walking us through the first few slides.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. So for this first one, why are we proposing an inclusive social studies curriculum? You know, we want to highlight that social studies is a study of multiple stories and perspectives, and it's our role as educators to make sure that we are allowing different perspectives to be told. And more importantly, with the historical thinking skills, it provides students the opportunity to examine multiple resources to determine the whole story of history. If you notice in the slides that Claire and Sherry review, you would see words like analyze, review, primary artifacts, things of that nature. Why are we using learning for justice standards? And Dr. Adams mentioned this in the beginning, but I just want to take a second to reiterate is that we have not, nor are we advocating for policies from the Southern Poverty Law Center, also known as SPLC. But what we were doing was searching for a framework that allowed us to support our curriculum. And this is also a framework that has been used by numerous school districts across the country. So on to the question. So the learning standards, they complement the Missouri learning standards for each grade level. They also provide us with multiple perspectives in social studies. And it gives us developmentally appropriate framework for inclusion, which is key because again, we're looking at K through 8, and also aligns with our district equity resolution, as well as our recently passed anti-bias, anti-racism policy. Are students capable of learning about inclusion at every grade level? And the answer is simply absolutely. You know, there's a lot of research that proves and shows that children start as early as 4, and some studies have shown actually younger, start to notice a difference and identify different races. And so with that information in mind and that grounded research in mind, we do recognize that humans can recognize similarities and differences. And it is important and critical for our students to see themselves in the curriculum And it's also important for all students to see others in the curriculum. Hence, that's why believe that students are capable of learning about inclusion at every grade level. The next slide will be presented by Dr. Rochelle.
Hello again, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about inquiry-based social studies. So inquiry-based social studies supports research and critical thinking. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute with examples, but I'm going to go through each of the bullet points first. Use of primary and secondary resources is structured into inquiry-based learning. It includes open-ended questions, developing claims supported by evidence, student voice and choice, which is really vital for students to understand and see themselves because they can choose topics that are related to them. Collaborative investigations that give kids an opportunity to work with each other, either looking for the answer to the same question or looking to the answer for opposing questions so that then they can get together and talk about them and discuss each other's claims. Opportunities for students to share their understandings with and learn from one another. Just as I stated before, it's really important for students to be able to verbalize when they make a claim and they have supporting evidence. It's important for them to sit down and have some input and have some feedback as to maybe there could be another viewpoint from the one that they're talking about. Opportunities for students to examine current events through the lens of the past. So when we talk about that, that means that we are looking at something that is occurring today and notice the trends in history that have either been repetitive throughout time or it's the root of something that is occurring today. So just really quickly what that might look like. So a question that could be addressed, what made nonviolent protests effective during the civil rights movement? And then students would examine multiple resources, primary and secondary. They would look at images from the Greensboro sit-ins. They would look at flyers about joining the sit-ins and what kind of training they would receive, including some footage from actual training sessions for sit-ins. Then they would look at some of the actions of the individuals as well as the court case that followed the sit-ins to determine why the sit-ins were so successful. I hope that kind of helps you understand what we mean by inquiry-based social studies. Thank you.
So what will professional development look like for staff? And I think this question's come up several times, both in our survey and just from teachers. So I think a key piece to this is continued training in our anti-bias, anti-racism work. Because when you're teaching and you're looking through that lens, that can inform whatever topic it is that you are working with your kids. Beyond that, we will have a coordinated effort across grade levels. So we will unpack each unit prior to teaching the unit. And my facilitators and I will be doing that together. They've already begun working on units and activities and lessons. So this will begin this summer and it will continue throughout the school year. And likewise, our teachers will also be given the opportunity to give feedback after each unit, at the end of each unit, so that we can continue to improve upon it. Our collaboration with Dr. King will continue next year. And then we will also just continually revisit and improve those instructional practices, and as well as looking for resources. You know, Sherry mentioned primary and secondary resources. And so we will always be looking for those that might enrich at every grade level.
At this time, we'll entertain any additional questions that you all may have.
Christine?
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing all of the thought that went behind this and all of the resources and the time clearly that was spent on the social studies curriculum. I noticed in the comments from parents, family members, community members, perhaps, that there were some concerns, and I'm wondering, when a new curriculum is introduced, how do you typically handle those concerns? And then how do you plan to handle the concerns that families might have with this new curriculum?
Sure. So that's a great question. In terms of process, so I'll just use this year, for example. We have had families who have reached out who are aware of this and have responded in the survey. I've walked them through the process. I've shared survey links with families to try to make sure that they have an opportunity to share their voice. We've posted it on the website. We included it in our communication. In addition to that, typically families will get information about curriculum changes at like school open houses, things like that at the beginning of the year. All of this curriculum will be posted on our curriculum website and is available for families to review. So typically it's more handled on an individual basis as families have questions. Either the coordinators would answer those questions. I'm happy to answer those questions. The classroom teacher may answer those questions. So it really varies, but we're all willing to answer those questions. At the same time, history is history. And it's important that there may be times where someone may disagree with the direction that the conversation is going, or just may disagree with that. And so sharing as much as possible about where that information is coming from, why we're sharing our perspective, or what the perspective is at that point, and just being as honest and open about those conversations as we can be. I hope that addresses your question, Christine.
It does. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Keita?
I kind of have two questions. They can sort of probably be related. You said that, I know on one of your slides, you said that there was going to be things supported by evidence and that you're still kind of looking for resources. What type of resources? What do you have already? What would you be looking for? What kind of resources would the students be using to come up with said evidence? And also, and this, I'm sorry to interrupt, because this could possibly be related. So social media, is there any thought at this level into talking about the impact of social media and things of that nature? Or I know that couldn't necessarily be used as a resource, but even how, and this, again, this might be more high school level, but like how algorithms can, affect things that you see on social media and as you're researching things and that kind of stuff. You understand what I'm trying to ask?
Yes, I
So,
do.
yeah, no, I would in our in the 8th grade curriculum for the present, as they move into the technological era that we have today, they do address that. I don't know if it's really addressing the algorithms necessarily, but the influence and impact that it has on your search threads when you're looking for information, and how you should weigh that and what is a reliable resource and how can you find that out. So that is something that we do and we have done traditionally in 7th and 8th grade whenever we do a research type project. We really want the students to use reliable resources, and we do lessons on that at the very beginning of each year on historical thinking and what you should use. So that part of your question I can answer too. And then the other part, I think that, so what we usually use for our resources would be from .gov, it's a .edu site if we're using something that's online. So we try to steer the kids towards that kind of resource. A lot of times with our investigations, the students are seeking out their own, but we usually model what it would look like for them before they engage in an investigation, because it's important for them to understand what you're looking for and how we look and what we look at, because you don't want to get misinformation. Does that address it, Keita?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Keita, I was just going to contribute to that as somebody involved a little bit more closely in yesteryear. is that our English curriculum really hits that pretty heavily in terms of this perspectives and sources as well. And if you think about it in today's world with access to resources, because, you know, it's everywhere. And there's a lot of great information, there's a lot of misinformation, all those things. That's one of the, what I would say is probably one of the top 5 skills that we can help our students learn coming out of our school system, is how to access and discern information. And so it's really important. And I do believe that in multiple curricular areas that it's prioritized and taught.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got something.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, not really a question, more so just acknowledgement, and I wanted to thank everyone who's worked for years on getting this together. I think probably 4 weeks or so, it seems like it was open for public comment, 2 during the break, and then several more after that. Was great, and I think we got some great public comments, and I think you've addressed a lot of those concerns. And also, I'm just excited that we're teaching our children to look at history from different viewpoints, which is going to create better critical thinkers, and just teaching them to look at different resources and not just one resource and one point of view. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So I would just say sort of one thing. I mean, as I sort of listen to this, I guess what I'm hearing is that in the past, when we've talked about history, it's tended to be just, you know, from a fairly singular viewpoint. And at least as I read this, what we're trying to do now is to go and expand the different views that we're getting. We're not taking away from the history that we've taught before. Now, what you may end up finding is you've got less time to go and teach Americans about the kings and queens of England from whenever, and some things like that probably isn't really as relevant to them. But on the other hand, what you then do is you get a chance to go and expand what people are learning about their own lives and communities. And that's sort of what comes across to me. And so as I read some of the comments that are sort of, saying, oh, what are we doing? And we're going and changing this. No, I mean, I view it as a very inclusive thing. And so I view that as a very positive development. Do I have a reasonable sense as to what's going on here? Just, from a non-academic perspective?
Yes, that's very much what the goal is. Making sure that points in history all the way through the present are viewed from multiple different perspectives, from those who were a part of it, whether that was a positive experience or whether that was perceived as a negative experience or was an actual negative experience. And so making sure that kids understand that throughout history and how history is being told. Sure. So you are correct.
Good. And one of the things I was always taught early on was that history is written by the winners. And in reality, I think we have a lot to learn from those who didn't do as well from history. And if we can sort of manage to sort of cover those who didn't end up, whatever we want to describe winning as, I think that's what allows us to learn. So it's good. Sorry, I'm sorry, John, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say is that just the evolution of social studies and history curriculums haven't kept up with, haven't been inclusive, but also haven't kept up with the pace of the world, and thinking of where we are now as a society with internet, with a global economy, with all these things where our children are going to be experiencing a lot of people from a lot of places, similar to them, some very different from them as well. And so this also helps them to develop that perspective with people who they'll be working with, or people who they'll be competing against, or people who they'll be socializing with. And again, it's a completely different world. And now we also, through the internet largely, and again, there's bad out there, we all know that, but they've got access to resources. They got access to primary documents and videos and all these things that they never had, because you had a textbook that was picked by whomever that was your source. So it's just, catching up with the times, catching up with what's right. And I appreciate all the compliments and everybody, huge kudos, and Sherry and Claire. I mean, just a wonderful job you've done over the years. And it's so hard. The work is so hard, especially with full-time jobs on top of what you're doing. And so thank you for all that you've done, including the sacrifices you've made to get us this far.
If I can add to that really, really quick, my oldest daughter, this is just an example of what John was just saying. She is currently in the French West Indies, helping to teach English on that island. So she graduated from Webster 2015. So it's just an example of she is literally somewhere else in a completely different culture, speaking a completely different language. There's no lattes. She's complained about that very much. But the point is, she's dealing with a completely different culture and everything else. And I see that those type of things are going to be happening quite a bit. So I was just kind of piggybacking on what John was saying. I think those kind of opportunities and jobs and all kinds of things are going to be happening a whole lot more. So yeah, it would be great for our kids to be better prepared.
Sure. I think the other thing that strikes me is that the way that we learn is evolving. Curriculums are evolving. And so this isn't going to be the last time we come back and revisit this. And this isn't going to be the last time that we come back and revisit many other aspects of how it is we're providing learning. It is going to be something that's ongoing. It'll be a different board. I won't be on the board probably by the time you're going and looking at these things again. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. But I do think, and we have to recognize we've got to sort of evolve. And so I applaud this and the other efforts that are going on to sort of step back and look. And I also applaud the way that you are reaching out and trying to get, and there are clearly different opinions, and you're listening to them and trying to address those as well. So thank you very much. Anybody have anything else on this subject?
I'll just add that I really like the fact that you're giving students a lot of autonomy, so that if there's some particular period of history that interests them, they can spend time learning more about that, which I think just makes students more engaged and makes the whole process a lot more, for lack of a better word, fun, as well as just they get more invested in it.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody coming on and doing that presentation. 3.05 auditing services.
Good night, Sherry and Claire.
Yeah, we are not going to be offended if our guest presenters don't stay on for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, you too.
Thank you too.
Okay. Pam, I presume auditing services will be you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So the district solicited proposals for auditing services, as we do every few years. We placed an ad in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Also reached out to DESE to get a list of various auditing firms throughout the state of Missouri. 10 of those firms on the list that they sent us do work in the greater St. Louis area. So we also sent them requests for proposals so that they knew that we are out to bid for auditing services. Unfortunately, we only received one proposal back. That was from Clifton Larson Allen. We did discuss this with the Finance Advisory Committee. We discussed the fact that they give excellent customer service. You know, not only do they perform the auditing service for us, but sometimes we have questions on things throughout the year. We call them, they're very prompt, they're very professional. And they also, of course, provide very thorough audits, which I think, of course, is a bonus for this. So our recommendation, even though we just have one, is to recommend Clifton Larson Allen as the district's auditor for the next 3 years. And I should point out that they have been the district's auditor for several years.
And can you talk about how the fee for how their proposed fee for the audit compares to prior years?
Yes, it is slightly increased from the prior year. We were just under 16,000 last year, so it is going up slightly, but that's expected. Each year then it'll go up in small increments for the next 3 years.
On a percentage basis?
Yes, I actually didn't calculate the percentage to see exactly what it is. They just gave those dollar amounts that are in the packet.
Okay, all right. Good stuff. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I will say again, yeah, I mean, I am the board liaison to Finance Advisory and would concur with everything that Pam said about the service that's been received, and I've been, I've been listening to them report back to the board for a number of years, and I've always been very impressed with the way it goes. So, good stuff. Thank you very much. Okay, and then we moved the childcare grant
David,
contract.
we'll need a motion on that. We'll need a motion to approve that.
Thank
too.
you. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't have a big enough window. It's not showing that there's all right. So
David, I make a motion to approve Clifton Larson Allen as the district's auditing firm for fiscal years 2020-21 with 2022-23.
Second.
okay, do I have a, thank you very much, Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And then the childcare grant contract we had moved off the consent agenda. And the only reason for that, I think, was just because it had been added relatively late. So I don't know, Pam, if you can just for a minute or two can speak to that, please.
Sure. So in your packet, as he mentioned, there's an agreement between the YWCA and the Head Start program in the Webster Grove School District. There's been a partnership between Head Start and the district for about 20 years. And what Head Start does is that they provide financial assistance to families who qualify so they can attend the Walter Ambrose Family Center. The agreement calls for funding for 20 families, so that is absolutely a benefit to our program, and we ask that the board approve that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm just curious, how are those families selected, Pam?
It's based on financial need.
So did they know to apply, or we tell them they should apply, or the Head Start program suggests they apply?
You know, that's a really good question, but I believe Marty reaches out to families. But yeah, there's going to be some families that she doesn't know about. So that's a really great question that I would have to look into.
Okay, just curious. Thank
If
you.
you can just come back to us at a subsequent, I don't think we need to hold this up for that, but if you could just come back to us and let us know, we'd be grateful. Okay, and having broken that, any other questions, sorry, about that? Okay, so having broken that out, I think we need a separate motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the childcare contract with YWCA.
Okay, do I have a, thank you very much, Keita. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. And then with that out, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent, the remaining consent agenda items.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items 4.03, 4.04, 4.05, 4.06, 4.07, 4.08, and 4.09.
Okay, any discussion? Oh, sorry, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so that passes as well. Okay, that is, we are done now. So now what we are going to do is we are going to adjourn sine die, or somebody who's done Latin can tell me what the correct pronunciation of that is. And then we are going to have the reorganization meeting for the new Board of Education. So first I'll entertain a motion to adjourn sine die.
So moved.
Yes. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Christine. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Next, we are going to install the newly elected board members, and I'm going to hand things over to the board secretary at this point.
Okay. Oh, you're right, Webster. The board reorganizes tonight with the installation of returning directors Christine Keller and Keita Quinn. At this time, board members will also elect their officers for the 2021-2022 school year. This is the oath of office for you to say and sign for the board record. Ms. Keller, we'll start with you. Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director.
In and for the school district of Webster Groves.
In and for the school district of Webster Groves.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri.
To the best of my ability according to law.
To the best of my ability according to law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
In and for the school district of Webster Groves.
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
To the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
We will now complete the board's reorganization with the board nominating and electing its officers. If you would like to make a nomination for board president, please send me your private message using the chat feature on the bottom of the Zoom screen.
So I don't think you can actually send it privately to you. You can either send it to Bill or to John at the moment. You'd have to be the host.
Is that right?
Mhm.
So I think we could send them to John, I suppose. And I know you're supposed to. Or can somebody make Sherry a host or a co-host, please? John, can you contact Bill to do that?
I'm working on it right now.
Great, thank you very much. There we go.
Everybody can send a message to Sherry now.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me again, what are we sending to Sherry?
If you have a recommendation for board president, you can send it. If you don't have one, you don't have to send it. It's your call. Has everybody who's interested in sending it had an opportunity to send it? Anybody not, I should say, maybe that's a better question. Looks like everybody's a go. Sherry, are you getting these messages?
I have got 4.
Okay.
And then Joe, I don't see yours.
You don't see mine?
Send one. She didn't have to send one if she didn't.
Nobody has to.
I did send one though.
I didn't get it. Okay, got it. Okay, I have a nomination for David Addison.
And I am prepared to serve.
Okay, so anyone would like to make a motion?
So do you have any nominations for anybody else?
Any
No other nominations, I'm sorry. That was it. You were it.
Okay.
Sure, I'll motion to approve David Addison as board president for the 21-22 school year.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, Mr. Addison, board president for the 2021-22 school year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the confidence from the board. I will hopefully we'll have a less interesting year this coming year. Okay, so now I will entertain if you want to nominate somebody for board vice president, just have you send them to Sherry again. It's probably going to be easier than sending them to me. So if you want to send if you have a nomination, again, you do not have to make a nomination, but if you have one for board vice president, please send it to Sherry. Just give everybody a minute to go and do that. Have you received nominations, Sherry?
Yes, I have. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
To submit. I have a nomination for Joe Dahl as vice president. Are you willing to serve as vice president, Joe?
I would be happy to serve.
Okay, I have no other nominations for vice president.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Joe as vice president for the coming school year.
I'll make a motion to approve Joe as vice president for the next school year.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Keita. Absolutely. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so that passes. Good stuff. So next is election of the board secretary. Sherry, are you prepared to carry on as board secretary?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. You've done a great job. Anybody else that any board member would care to nominate for board secretary? Okay. In which case, I'll entertain a motion to approve Sherry as board secretary for the coming year.
Make a motion to approve Sherry Myers for board secretary for the coming 21-22 school year.
A second. Thank you, Alex. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? And that passes. Then the board treasurer. So I want to thank Joanne Kite for her hard work as board treasurer over the years. She's done great work for the board in that regard, as well as everything else she's done for the district. In her, as she is retiring, I believe that Pam Fraser Pam, are you prepared to act as board treasurer, at least for the moment?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion for Pam Fraser to be board treasurer for the coming year.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Alan. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? So that passes as well. So thank you very much for agreeing to take on that role, Pam. At this point, I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Keita. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Addison,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.